Okay, I'm mostly going to get right into this one because it's a very emotionally charged chapter. Uh, but yes, this is one of the ones that I really wanted to record because I felt like it would sound, it would, it would read better uh, being listened to uh, with the proper inflection and whatnot. Uh, but yes, this is chapter 32, I believe, of Hunters, Angels, Werewolves, Oh My. It is indeed 32. Sketchbook. The sketchbook, to be clear. Okay, enjoy the chapter. I'm gonna go. Chris closed the door gingerly as he could as he stormed into his darkened office, breath shallow, furious. He tried to rein in his rage. He failed at that, too. His desk lamp shattered against the wall before he'd realized he'd grabbed it. God, he hoped that soundproofing was quality. His body shook, no other outlet for his anger, sorrow, self-disappointment. 1,000 lamps wouldn't have choked back the sob ringing its way up Chris's throat. He slammed his fist down on the desk, but it was too late to do him any good. What good was his rage if it couldn't get him revenge? In the dim light of the street lamps filtering through his curtains, he crumpled into the chair behind him, holding his head pitifully in his hand. He gave way to the aching sobs, trying not to wallow in his memories and failing yet again. He was young then. It was before he was a father, before he was a husband. A young man barely his junior, he'd come to find out. He looked so much younger. Or maybe Chris had just always looked like an old man. He was so terrified, caught in one of their traps. Chris's gun trained on him defensively. A notebook in his hands and tears brimming in his eyes, too terrified to speak. How couldn't Chris let him go? He never felt wrong in that. The next time he met him was at the store. Chris pretended to be furious with him. I followed you, obviously. Chris had always been mesmerized by that drawl. Why? I could reveal you, you know, Chris had said out of spite. He'd never have. But this werewolf just laughed. What? You tell people I'm a werewolf, they'll think you're crazy. If I told them you tried to kill me, though. I didn't try to. Peter gave him a shy but somehow wolfish smile. I'm just using it as a comparison. He saw him a few more times. He'd assumed most of these occasions were coincidence. He stayed away, though, not realizing the feeling in his stomach was love. He's not sure he'd have gone to him if he'd known. Next they spoke was in those same woods, a few miles off from where they'd been. He found him, caught by another trap, this time spikes, covered with wolfsbane. He dragged him away from the trap, the sound of his friends and family searching the woods hot in his ears, all the way to an abandoned root cellar. He burned the poison from his wounds, doing his best to be gentle with him. He told himself he only cared because he didn't want him screaming and giving them away. He had no lies to tell himself as to why he was helping the wolf, or why he watched him sleep for over a half an hour. He was understandably cautious when he woke, but Chris couldn't stop staring at his eyes, still drooped from restless sleep. Where am I? How long was I out? He grumbled, only slightly defensive. Chris finally managed to avert his gaze. Only 30 minutes. Chris has always remembered how amazed he was that this half-dead corpse of a boy could muster up a scoff even in his state. Only 30 minutes. Well then. It had sounded like he'd intended to say something witty, but all that came was a small groan. Chris stopped him as he went to sit up. Hey, relax. You're hurt. Give yourself a break. He barely got the kid to sit back. Why the hell do you keep coming out here anyway? He'd sighed, and Chris waited restlessly for his reply. I come out here to sketch for school. Chris just nodded. You go to Beacon? Chris found himself fixated with the most bewildered look. I'm in college. Chris was dumbfounded, but nodded. What are you going for? Artsy stuff, mostly painting and that, but a couple of writing and poetry classes. Chris nodded along as he droned on, passion evident even in his still sleepy, soft blue eyes. At first, Chris had thought they were just his wolf eyes, but several times he had seen this wasn't the case. I mean, hopefully, but I did register early so I would get preferred placement. This is my last chance to take them, so I'm crossing my fingers. I mean, I could always go back for community courses, but I really want them under my degree. Chris had snapped back to reality at that. You're a senior? He was fixed with a half glare, but Chris didn't pay it any mind. How old are you? He'd rolled his eyes. Older than I look to you, apparently. So, do I get a name for my trouble this time? Or are you just gonna stalk me more? Chris tried not to sigh and failed. He'd surveyed him for a long time. Well over a minute, literally. Looking back, it seemed more like it was between 5 and forever. I'll give you mine if you give me yours. He'd finally answered, his voice conspiring for nothing more than an exchange of names, and he'd smiled at the spark of innocence he saw even in this apparently grown man. Chris obviously knew this really was a risk for both of them, but God, he just sounded like a kid looking so desperately to share a cherished secret. Christoph, he said, letting the R sit silent on the end. This werewolf eyed him carefully before trying to sit up and lean forward. After a good effort, Chris twisted to help. He was close when he answered, gentle and quiet. I'm Peter. Christoph could remember to this day how far gone he was the second he heard that name. The moment he'd pulled away, just slightly, to look into those living embodiments of the ocean, and smiled back at him. Some lonely nights it was all he needed to rid him of inconvenient frustrations. Others it was all it took to bring him to the edge of his alcoholism. Or worse. Then there was the last time they'd truly spoken. They'd woken up in the later portion of the afternoon, neither of them on what one would call a normal sleep schedule. The first thing either of them had thought to do was to kiss the very breath out of each other. Chris wishes that he could compartmentalize that he could look back on that without the weight of every memory that came after. Nothing would make me happier than kissing you like this for the rest of my life. That was never untrue. He might have been a coward, but that didn't change what he'd wanted. What he'd wanted every day since. Then why don't you? He could still hear the sleepy rumble of Peter's voice. Could still feel the way his breath kissed the shell of his ear. But he had sighed. He hated that sigh. Peter, don't. He held Peter's smaller frame close, all it took to keep him from pulling away. We have to stop pretending like this isn't a necessary conversation. He put his forehead to Peter's, spoke with promise. Tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it. Peter sighed right back at him. He hated that sigh too. You're really gonna put that on me? Chris gave him a sorrowful look. You know I can't do right by you. Not on my own. Tell me what you want and I'll give it to you. Peter had tears behind his eyes, even though Chris's still had hope. You want me to tell you to run away with me? To come down with me to my place when break ends and just live happily ever after? Chris pressed his lips to Peter's, begging silently. Ask me to and I'll pack now. Chris's hope died so softly as Peter's tears rolled off his cheek. You know I can't. Chris saw the end. He didn't want it. Why? He'd insisted. I can't take you from your family. You can be my family. You want kids. I want you more. He pushed, but Peter's expression was sadder than he thought him capable. If you put this on me, I'll tell you to stay. I'm not selfish enough to tell you anything else. His heart hurt more than any wound he'd ever had. Peter, be selfish. Peter only shook his head. The most I could ask for is once more. He didn't think either of them could really enjoy it. He was in too much pain, and he had cried. He left crying. The next time he'd seen Peter, he had a little niece, 5 years old as his own baby girl, nestled on his hip. And he'd pretended they'd hardly ever met. He couldn't even explain through his tears to Victoria that night. He'd been happy for Kate when she'd found happiness where he'd failed. A younger Hale boy. Chris could see in how amused she was over his every passion. They'd even shared a love of history, and Chris was happy that he'd at least let Kate know that it was possible, that she wasn't wrong for loving someone their family wouldn't call ideal, and that he was there for her. He was glad his failure wouldn't be hers, and he was particularly glad that she would be able to marry whoever she wished. Panic filled his heart when she'd called, sounding so upset. Hale estate all but wiped out in tragic fire. As if it wasn't enough to know the love of his life was comatose, severe burns to most of his body, that Peter'd never look at him with those soft eyes again. I don't know. I don't want to say anything to anyone because I don't really know, but God, Chris, he was upset. His mother was really... She'd said... I told him not to do anything rash, but... And the three of them left so suddenly after. I don't know what to... I think it was Sterek, Chris. Chris was glad his daughter had been at school. Even still, she came home to her mother sweeping up glass, a kitchen she couldn't enter, and her father locked in her parents' bedroom, his crying and sobs and mournful bellowing a ghost in the air of the quiet night. I'm so sorry, Peter. He cried, sniffling to himself. I keep failing you. Woo! Cry time over. That's 32. Over and done with. Yeah. There are parts of this I really look forward to fixing with the rewrite. But at the same time, it is such a good chapter that I was so proud of when I first wrote it. I still genuinely cry. I cry. I cry. I cry. I cry. It's very emotional and sad and sappy. I fully expect you to cry on this one. Chris is a very sad boy. That is the general gist of Chris's character. He's sad. He too sad. He cry a lot. He got problem. Poor boy. But no, there are a few consistency issues with this. First of all, Chris should know that Peter is well older than him. I mean, of course he didn't know that at the time, and you could say, oh, well, he's talking physically. Peter is just younger than him. However, it's still very it's tiptoeing around breaking the canon, and I don't love that about it. Also, given later developments, in my mind, it very much does not make sense that Peter would be at all doe-eyed at a hunter coming across. I just chalk it up to like being trapped and alone. It's easier, and without like armor or weapons, it's really easier just to be like ooh than to go for the throat immediately when a person might just help you and you're fairly secure in their lack of ability to outdraw you before you could jump out of the way. But yes, that is another thing that it doesn't. Peter Boy being in these woods alone is sus. Let's just say it's sus. But otherwise, him being particularly scared by a solitary hunter cornering him in the woods seems also quite sus. But like I said, I guess you could just explain that away with him being all ooh getting help instead of trying to murder a man. Which, to be fair, Chris is kind of Peter's MO, and Chris is a very good target for that because he is very soft and very clearly soft. Very easy to peg as a soft boy. But where are the other ones? Peter passing out is another weird one. That I don't like. I can't say, oh, he wouldn't pass out. Like, he could pass out. He could very well pass out. However, he's definitely undergone much worse injury, and I'm sure been fine. But yeah, that's a thing. Also just it's not plot breaking in any. It's not a plot hole technically speaking, but I just find it so fucking hilarious that Chris has such a fixation on Peter being like naive or childish or innocent in any fucking way, because again, this man is like hundreds of years older than him, like hundreds, and he's just he's been vibing and just seducing people since he was like 16. And being 16 was hundreds of years ago. And he's like, This is the most morally corrupt 200 something that you could probably meet in the woods alone at any given point in time. And Chris is just like, oh, ooh, I like ooh, nice ooh. And he just falls for that, like, hook, line, and sinker, and never lets up on it, even though he absolutely knows, like, everything about Peter. There's no reason for it. It's very confusing to me. But cute beans are cute. I love them. Victoria is Chris's wife. I can show you, Halton, pictures of Chris's wife. Her personality doesn't quite match her appearance, because by her appearance you might think, oh, she seems cool. She's not cool. She's very much a hard ass. I do intend for her to be less of that in the fic. She's a bit more cool, a bit more, like, doing what she has to, and, like, caring for her family. Which doesn't come across much in the show, which it's weird because they seem to be trying to characterize her that way. And it's just not a thing, because she's like a big ass dick to her entire family, and not particularly good to her family in any particular. Like, she's a big old dick to her like, just bad character. Like, just bad character building, bad character design. Like, this woman has no coherent character motivations, really. It's really fucking weird. I can't, because these are spoilers, because I do go into this, I do follow that much of the plot in the fic, but it's like, Jesus, beezus. Like, you can't even get into how fucking incoherent it is without, like, plot information, and it's like, wow. Kate is, Chris's sister. His younger sister, to be clear. How much younger is she? In this chapter specifically, Kate is, 27 or around there. I'm not sure. I think 27. Because this is when she was, with Derek, quote unquote, and, it was, when he was 16, and it's really iffy about her age, so I was just like, okay, let's go, like, 20s, late 20s-ish, and that seemed about right, so I was just like, But yeah, bad things, icky bad. If Kate sounds at all sus, congratulations, you have clocked correctly. We will see more of her susness in the future. She is lovely as a character, I suppose. But yeah, Ooty booty, oota boota, oota boota, oota boota. What are we on? And yeah, I think the rest is just good old ouchie wouchie. Yeah, ouchie wouchie. I'm noticing and I enjoy the reoccurring theme of Christopher feeling like a failure. I really love that just a motif the theme with Chris's character is he keeps failing. He feels like a failure. Like, yeah. I love that it always comes around to him failing something, even in like innocuous situations. It's like, oh, he failed at this or that, and I find that very interesting. I like it. But yes, I'm going to end this one here, I think. I don't think there's anything else to speak on. Oh, I really enjoyed Peter's character voice in this. It's like very silky, smooth, but like very melodic and not too high. I didn't want to go too high with him because I didn't want to really portray him as effeminate because I don't think he's that effeminate. He's just got that very swaggerly, charming kind of vibe. But yeah, I also got more into Chris's voice with this one. It's a lot easier when he's younger because I feel like he wouldn't have as much as that gruffness. Like, that's really hard to characterize. Kate's voice in this, I think those were the only voices I did. Kate's voice was really, I don't know if it was it fun? I think it was fun. Because I did a couple tries at it, and I was like, I want to get this kind of close to her voice in the show. And it's not that close to her voice in the show, but it's kind of there. Like, it's almost there, and I enjoy that. Also, clarification, small clarification, Peter's niece is on his hip in the part in the supermarket. That's another... I'll get to it in a second. Let me finish this thought first. But yeah, his niece is on his hip. Chris did not have Allison with him in the store. But yeah. But no, the fucking plot hole with the fucking store is very annoying to me specifically. Hey, okay, first of all, I don't think Peter had a place. He might have had a place closer to college. Who knows? I don't know how far out of town he would have gone for schooling, but yeah, I don't think he'd have any long-term housing because he was still living with Talia at the time. He was still living on the Hale estate. As were... Well, no, not at this point. He was. I was thinking of Claudia and Rosa and Corinne, which names you barely know. If at all. I don't think you know Rosa or Corinne's name, so just... No words. I'm not wording. We're not wording. No wording. But yeah, so that's another thing I have to fix, Peter. Maybe switch the wording on that so that's a little more reasonable and plot coherent. Don't necessarily have to, because he could have a short-term apartment, and that could be part of why he is saying that with an air of, like, this is stupid, what are you talking about, we can't do that. But yeah, another plot hole that I'm just fucking bleh with, I feel like Chris and Peter would have seen each other through certain, let's say, occupational, overlaps. Not particularly the hunting, but with the whole thing with their, friend group, I feel like they would have some run-ins in that respect. and it says the next time he'd seen Peter, which would not be the next time he'd seen Peter, technically speaking. And also, he'd pretended they'd hardly ever met. Which would mean that Chris doesn't know about Peter's amnesia in the present. Or at least, it would mean he doesn't know about it in the present. Which I don't know about. I feel like Morell should have told Chris about Peter because they're still in touch, but It's a whole lot of things, but I don't know what to do about that one because it's kind of a lot. It's kind of a big ticket there to deal with. I don't know how I'm going to fix that one. It will not be that hard to fix, I'm sure, but it's just brain go moosh. But yeah. Side note, I do love that Chris refers to Allison in the past tense as his baby girl. And that's real cute. I don't know. Is there anything else I missed with? Oh yeah, fucking Chris's little fucking mini rant about Kate finding happiness where he found. Oh, this is one of the first things I rereading this to like go over what you would be what Halton would be reading coming up. I noticed they even shared a love of history line, and I've been trying to figure out what Derek's major would be in, what his master's degree would actually be in, and I've been toying with the idea of him being a history major, like liking history, liking like majoring in some kind of mythology, blah blah blah. But like this, it was good to go back and see like a tidbit in previous chapters about that is what I mean to say. But yes, no. It is cute but also very sad and also very dumb, like just Chris's entire little rant. And it's very sad. Like, first of all, Chris, sweetie, do you really think that Kate would be able to marry a fucking werewolf in your baby? Sweetie, you know your family. You should probably get that that's not gonna happen. But yeah, everything. Things exist, and they're dumb. Chris is one of those things. We love our brain dead boy. Well, technically Peter is our brain dead boy, but we love our very dumb boy. But yeah. And also, the fact that fucking Kate uses Talia and Derek's issues as an excuse and an alibi really does fucking suck, doesn't it? Oh god. Ah! Ooh. But yeah, no, also, the three of them left so suddenly is a thing, because in the show, apparently, annoyingly, Cora Derek's little sister, ran, like, when the fire happened even though I'm pretty sure it was a plot thing. I don't know if it was a plot thing in the show. I don't know if they ever explicitly stated it. Like, if there wasn't, like, fucking mountain ash around the house to keep people in, it's real fucking dumb that none of those motherfuckers survived that shit. Oh my fucking god. Oh dear lord. Like, what the fuck? Like, there had to be mountain ash around the house to keep them in, right? 'Cause a bunch of fucking werewolves in their own house, like, aren't going to wake up and get out of the burning house. You're gonna try and tell me they're not gonna get up and get out of the burning house. Like, you can jump out of a window. It's not like your bones are gonna break. You're a werewolf. You'll heal. Like, the humans, I could get, maybe, like, being afraid of jumping out of a window and breaking their bones. But the werewolves? The werewolves. Like, the werewolves could have gotten the humans out. Like, Talia fucking Hale and Alpha was inside of this house. There better have been something keeping these werewolves inside of this burning house. 'Cause it's not like these hunters were being particularly tactful or quiet when they were burning down the house. I don't know if that's been revealed plot-wise yet, but it's pretty heavily implied. So, like, why? Why else would they not leave the house? Which is why, in the fic, it is a thing that they did done do that. It was mountain ashed, so they couldn't get out. I don't know if it's a thing in the show. If it's not, that's real fucking dumb. For some reason, I'm very concerned that it's not a thing in the show. And it's very dumb. But the show is very dumb in many ways. Like, for instance, Cora, an 11-year-old girl at the time of the fire, apparently got out of the house and then ran away and then went to South America. Like, just went to South America for no reason. I guess not. Like, she didn't even check if her family was dead. Like, supposedly, quote unquote, the fire happened while the kids were in school. Why would Cora have been at home, first of all, if she's an 11-year-old child? That's a question to be had. But then you also have the fact that they show the fire being started. In the show, they show Peter waking up at the time, and all of it takes place in the middle of the night. All of it takes place in the middle of the night when no children would be at school. Like, Laura, maybe, if she was, in fact, college-aged and away at school, but it's made pretty clear that Sterek is in public school, and therefore Cora would probably be in public school. So, A, if they were in school at the time, why would Cora have not been informed of the fire and then collected by her older sister? And which is dumb because the fire did not start when they were at school, clearly. So that's fucking irrelevant. But also, why the fuck did this little girl break out of the fire somehow, get out, and then not check for other surviving relatives, like her sister, who was out of the house at school? Therefore, one could assume at college, therefore one could assume Cora would have no reason to assume that she'd be dead. And Sterek, who she would probably smell around town and around the house and outside, indicating that he was not in the fire. Like, sweetie. Like, you just didn't check? You just didn't think about any of your relatives who might have survived, and you just fucking dipped to fucking Peru? That's what you did? That's what you chose to do with your life? This happens in the show. This child runs away. This 11-year-old girl travels, like, on foot to South America after being in a fire with no help from any parental guardians. No one knew she was alive 'cause she ran away. Like, what? This show is so dumb. This show is so dumb. And fucking so in the fucking thick, that's not a thing, baby. Cora went to fucking New York with her sister and her brother. They're happy and lovely and a beautiful family. And Cora's not a fucking stupid, dumbass fucking 11-year-old who ran away to fucking Peru after being in a fire and not checking if her fucking family members were alive. God, this child. But no. Instead, she is currently in fic time studying abroad with a pack in Peru instead of having run away to a fucking pack in Peru who she didn't. We're fine. It's dumb. We're living with it. But really, it's really dumb that it's fucking just accept. Like, people in the fandom generally seem to accept that the fire took place while the kids were at school. Not only that, the general consensus seems to be that Laura, Derek's older sister, was in fact a high schooler? Which, what? First of all, this dumbass child, Sterek, I mean, is supposedly... okay, first of all, he's a dumbass. He's characterized in high school as being kind of a dumbass. Like, not even kind of a dumbass. Like, we meet him as a child later, and he's so pretty. He's so pretty. Sweetie, he's so pretty. Like, he's the prettiest, okay? He's very, very pretty. Oh my god, he is pretty. But no. Like, I love him, but he's supposed to be a fucking junior. Like, a junior is 11th year. your high schooling ends at 12th year, and he's supposed to be in 11th year when he's 16. Like 15, 16. Which is not how that works, sweetie. That's just not how any of this works. Like, no. Like, fucking freshmen, like year 9s are 15. He's not gonna be 15 in fucking junior year, sweetie. That's not how that works. He's gonna be like 17 in junior year. If that. Like, if he's a real dumb bitch, he's gonna be 18 in his fucking junior year. Jesus fucking Christ. No, he's not gonna be fucking 16, 15 in his fucking junior year. It's not gonna happen. But, even granting that, then his older sister, who is the fucking, like, his mother's heir to be alpha, you can't tell me that sweet little cherub child might not have some issues with, like, perfectionism. 'Cause, like, look at this family. But no. Fucking bitch is in, like, she's 1 year older than Derek. Is that what we're supposed to gather? Like, did Talia not, like, take a birthing break? An all-powerful werewolf? Like, bitch doesn't age properly. Like, they're supposed to, like, werewolves live and don't age for a long time, supposedly. I think bitch can afford to give her mammaries a break and her ovaries a break. Like, give your uterus some time, girl. Like, no, I don't think she's having Derek immediately after having Laura, and then having Cora, like, fucking, how much older is she? 5 years later after Derek? Like, why would you have one right after the other and then wait 5 years for another one when the one that you wanted supposedly didn't end up being female, and your family is a matriarch, and the point of having many kids is generally to secure a family line. Like, yeah, no, my point is, Laura's not in fucking high school, and Derek's not a fucking junior at 15. Let's be honest. He's pretty, not happening. Like, in my fic, he's a very smart boy. Very pretty, but very smart. He's dumb in the other way. He's dumb in that he makes very bad decisions. But otherwise, academically, he's a good, smart boy. However, still, Laura's not a year. Like, they would, come on, they're not gonna be in high school together. Let's be fucking honest. If Laura's gonna be in school at the same time as Derek, she's gonna be in high school. Like, babe, come on. Like, Derek's 16. At most, even if he was, like, properly in school in a reasonable time range, that would mean she would be, like, 2 years older than him. And I'm not fucking, nah, fam, we saw her, she's an adult woman. Like, what on earth? No, she's an adult woman. You can't have her in high school. You just can't. It's not a thing. I forbid it. She's a college student. And if she was but it doesn't matter because they couldn't have been at fucking... I forgot I was ranting about this. Like, just the fandom accepting this. Oh my god, I want to fucking take a melon baller to my brain. My brain. In conclusion, Teen Wolf is bad. It's very dumb. The fandom is also sometimes bad. And also sometimes dumb. But we all love each other. No, we don't. That is very untrue. But I love you guys. And you love me. And we're all here. And we've survived this far, technically speaking. So please enjoy this. I'm sorry I've ranted at you for probably half an hour at this point. But I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.